Good afternoon. Many thanks for tuning in. I am Lincoln Wambogo. Sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. This is Switch Focus News at 4. And these are the top stories. South Sudan's Vice President Riek Machar has been deposed as head of his party and its armed forces. Machar has been deposed following a 3-day gathering in the country's far north of senior leaders from the Sudan's People Liberation Movement in opposition. Caroline Sumer opens the reporting for us.
Its Chief of Staff, First General Simon Dwal, was declared interim leader of opposition movement that governs the troubled country in a shaky alliance with former enemies. The military wing said Machar had completely failed to show leadership and greatly weakened the party's position in the post-war coalition government formed between the warring sides in early 2020. Machar had engaged in a long years policy of divide and rule and favored nepotism over unity or advancing his party cause, according to a statement signed by the SPLM military leadership. The ouster of Machar comes as South Sudan faces economic disaster and its worst hunger crisis since independence, with the tens of thousands of people enduring famine-like conditions in the world's youngest nation. Already, there are calls for a peaceful public uprising to topple the current regime and end the chronic political and economic crisis. South Sudan gained independence from Sudan in 2011 but descended into fighting 2 years later when forces loyal to Kir and Machar clashed into the capital. Machar played a major role in pushing his partner, President Salva Kiir, to a peace deal in 2018 and the subsequent formation of a unity government following years of civil war. Caroline Tuma, Switch TV.
Thank you, Caroline Simmer. Former South African President Jacob Zuma will be allowed out of jail next week to attend a long-running corruption case in Passon rather than by video link. The hearing, scheduled to resume in the southeastern city of Pietermaritzburg on August 10th, shall proceed in open court, according to Judge Pete Coyne. Robert Homer reports.
Zuma's 79 began a 15-month jail term last month in an unrelated case, an event that sparked violence and looting. Shortly afterwards, he appeared for the corruption trial via video link, although his lawyers complained that the online format was unconstitutional and breached his right to face-to-face consultation with his lawyers. Zuma faces 16 charges of fraud, graft and racketeering related to the 1999 purchase of fighter jets, patrol boats and equipment from the 5 European arms firm when he was the deputy president. He is accused of taking bribe from one of the firm's French defense giant Thales, which has been charged with corruption and money laundering. Next week's hearing will start off with Zuma's application to have the chief state prosecutor, Billy Downer, recused from the case on an allegation of bias and leaking information to the media. Zuma's foundation welcomed Coyne's decision to have the case heard in an open court. Zuma was ordered to serve a 15-month term for refusing to testify to a commissioner probing state corruption under his presidency from 2009 to 2019. Protests initially broke out against Zuma's imprisonment but soon descended into rioting and looting, with the vigilante group forming to protect the property. Major highways and rail routes were shut down. While businesses were plundered and burned, the violence escalated into the worst unrest ever since the end of apartheid, and at least 337 people were reported killed during the unrest. Robert Omar, Switch TV News.
Thank you, Robert Homer. Ghana is planning to put digital currency ECD into trial use in September to reduce its reliance on cash, according to the country's central bank. The mobile money introduced by the telecommunications companies has been widely accepted in Ghana over the last few years. The central bank says transactions in the first half of this year hit nearly $80 billion. Analysts say the introduction of the digital currency can spur the local economy to grow, adding that much remains to be done to make it easier for Ghanaians to accept ECD in financial services.
In the long term, it's going to help us have a cashless society, facilitate international transaction, and then reduce cost of printing, and then ensure transparency in our financial transaction. Infrastructure is very poor. We need to invest in infrastructure, millions of dollars. Government needs to do it. The service providers must also release funds to do it. And then the cost of internet service provision is also high. It has to come down so that everybody would have the interest in taking part or assessing it.
Elsewhere, several lightning bolts have hit a wedding party in Bangladesh within a few seconds, killing at least 16 people and injuring the groom. The group had just left a boat at the riverside town of Shikbanj to take shelter from the thunderstorm when the lightning struck, according to a statement by a government administrator for the town, as Mariam Jahid narrates.
The bride was not with the wedding party, according to a statement released to the media, confirming that 16 people died as several boats struck within a few seconds of each other in the western district of Chapaimwanj. Fierce monsoon storms have battered Bangladesh this year. A week of torrential rains in the southeastern district of Cox's Bazar left some 20 dead, including 6 Rohingya refugees. Lightning kills hundreds of people in South Asian nation each year. In 2016, Bangladesh declared lightning strikes a natural disaster when more than 200 people died in the month of May alone, including 82 people on a single day. Many deaths are never officially recorded, however, and one independent monitor counted at least 349 deaths from lightning strikes. Some experts say deforestation has increased the death toll. Bangladesh has planted hundreds of thousands of palm trees in a bid to ease the impact of climate change and reduce the number of lightning deaths. Mariam Jahid, Switch TV.
Mariam Jahid, thank you. Elsewhere, hundreds of residents living near a forest area north of Athens fled their homes as a wildfire reached residential areas, fueled by Greece's worst heat wave in decades. The blaze sent smoke over the capital and prompted multiple evacuations near Tetoi, 20 kilometers north of Athens. Many residents left their homes in cars and on motorcycles and headed towards the capital as smoke blanketed residential areas, as Sazamunga narrates.
It has been reported that the highest temperature in Greece, especially in Makrokomi, reached 46.3 degrees Celsius yesterday. According to the Hellenic National Meteorological Service, the heat wave is expected to peak early next week, but will continue until Friday. The fire in a dense pine forest in Anovra-Bobi has been spreading quickly in the hot and dry weather that has gripped the country since last Thursday. The authorities have reinforced the fire brigade and deployed aerial firefighters to battle the blaze. Yesterday, 355 fighters were dispatched in the area, 10 teams on foot and 70 vehicles, 5 helicopters and 5 aircraft, including a Russian Berev B-200 amphibious plane, as well as an army of volunteers and municipal crews. The Civil Protection Service issued an emergency 112 alert to residents of Arabobi and Adems, urging them to evacuate their homes. The fire has led to the closure of the Athens-Lamia National Highway in both directions. The suburban train service between Athens and Thessaloniki has also been suspended. The fire has damaged a 400-kilowatt electricity transmitter, causing voltage fluctuations across Athens and power outages in some parts of the capital. Greece is hit by wildfires every summer. In 2018, 102 people died in the coastal resort of Mati near Athens, in the country's worst ever heat forest inferno. Experts have warned that climate change was increasing both the frequency and intensity of the wildfires. The country wildfires can be associated with not only higher temperatures but also lower precipitation. Dry wood burns more easily and more quickly, making the wildfires more severe and allowing them to spread more quickly. Sazamunga, Switch TV.
Thank you, Tazamunga. Typhoon Lopit made landfall in China's Shantou, Guangdong province at 11:20 a.m. today, packing winds of up to 20 meters per second at its center, according to the National Meteorological Center. From 2 p.m. on Thursday to 2 p.m. on Friday, parts of Fujian, Guangxi and Guangdong will experience heavy downpours of up to 250 to 300 millimeters. According to an NMC forecast issued at 10 a.m. today, China has activated a level 4 emergency response for flood and typhoon control and dispatched working teams to Guangdong to guide local typhoon and rainstorm prevention work. Multiple cities in southwest China's Sichuan province have issued the highest red alerts on high temperature over the past few days as heat waves continue to affect the region. For many areas in the province, a scorching heat has been lasting for about a week. On Tuesday, the temperature reached 40 degrees Celsius in some areas in Leshan and Lizhu City, prompting the local meteorological authorities to issue the red alert. Scott Muriaki reports.
In Jinwen County of Yibin City, the temperature reached 42.1 degrees Celsius at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, making it the hottest county in the country at that time. The city of Yibin issued the first red alert on high temperature of this year on Wednesday morning. China has a 4-tier color-coded weather warning system, with red representing the most severe, followed by orange, yellow, then blue. Local authorities in Jinwen County dispatched sprinkler trucks and fog cannon vehicles to help cool the air down in the public space. The power company also mobilized over 400 electric workers to conduct inspections and checks to ensure the stable running of the power grid. Staff members of the power grid company in Meishan City have also been closely monitoring the electricity consumption in the city and adjusted plans to ensure safe and stable operation of the power facilities. On Monday afternoon, the temperature of two major transformers at a substation reached the upper limit of 75 degrees Celsius, and the technicians quickly gave them a shower to bring the temperature down to the safe range.
Well, that story by Scott Muriaki takes us to a short commercial break. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more. Welcome back and thank you for keeping it Switch TV. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at Switch TV Kenya. Send in your feedback and comments to our SMS line 111 a Switch TV Kenya and at link on all social media handles. The World Health Organization is calling on high-income countries to halt the use of booster shots before the end of September in order to allow at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated against COVID-19. So far, more than 4 billion vaccine doses have been administered globally and more than 80% have gone to high and upper middle income countries, even though they account for less than half of the world's population. Accordingly, WHO is calling for a moratorium on boosters until at least the end of September to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated.
So far, more than 4 billion vaccine doses have been administered globally. More than 80% have gone to high and upper middle income countries, even though they account for less than half of the world's population. I understand the concern of all governments to protect their people from the Delta variant. But we cannot and we should not accept countries that have already used most of the global supply of vaccines, using even more of it, while the world's most vulnerable people remain unprotected. We need an urgent reversal from the majority of vaccines going to high-income countries to the majority going to low-income countries. Accordingly, WHO is calling for a moratorium on boosters until at least the end of September to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated. To make that happen, we need everyone's cooperation, especially the handful of countries and companies that control the global supply of vaccines. It's no understatement to say that the course of the pandemic depends on the leadership of the G20 countries. 1 month from now, the G20 health ministers will meet ahead of the G20 summit in October. I call on them to make concrete commitments to support WHO's global vaccination targets. We call on vaccine producers to prioritize COVAX.
Japan has reported an all-time high record of 14,000 new COVID-19 cases amid the continuous surge of infections cases in the country. With a single-day record of 4,000 cases in the metropolitan Tokyo, the surging number of cases in Tokyo came with the Delta variant of the coronavirus, wreaking havoc, according to the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare in Japan, as Lillian Minor reports.
The weekly average of new cases in Tokyo rose to 3,478 from 1,954, while the number of severely ill patients under the metropolitan government's criteria increased by 3 from the previous day to 115. The capital also reported 1 death linked to the virus. Tokyo entered its 4th state of emergency on pandemic on July 12th. However, in the past 3 weeks, the COVID-19 cases kept surging. The state of emergency in the Tokyo and Okinawa prefectures was extended to the end of August, and 3 prefectures neighboring Tokyo and western Osaka were added into the state of emergency list on Monday. Shigeru Omi, Japan's top medical advisor, also said it is likely that Tokyo will see 6,000 to 8,000 cases per day next week, and the worst-case scenario could see a possibility of 10,000 people a day. There have been more than 300 COVID-19 cases associated with the ongoing Olympics, according to the Tokyo Organizing Committee. For Switch TV, I'm Lillian Minor.
Thank you, Lillian Minor. Still in Japan, the country is preparing to expand emergency restrictions to 8 more prefectures to fight a surge in COVID-19 cases as worries grow about strains on the medical system in Tokyo as it hosts the Olympics. The planned move comes on today as coronavirus infections surged at an unprecedented pace, overshadowing the Summer Games and driving doubts about the Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga's handling of the pandemic. Caroline Sume with his story.
The latest steps to take effort from Sunday mean more than 70% of Japan's population will be under some restrictions. Already, 6 prefectures, including Tokyo, are under full state of emergency, which will remain in place until August 31st, while a further 5 are under less restrictions, quasi-emergency directives. But experts question whether the steps, which are mostly voluntary, will have much effect as people have grown wary of staying at home even as the highly transmissible Delta variant spreads. Since the beginning of this month, the Delta variant has made up roughly 90% of new cases in the Kanto region and 60% in the Kansai region, according to the National Institute of Infectious Diseases. The decision to extend restrictions follows a sharp backlash against Suga plans for COVID-19 patients to isolate at home, with only those who are seriously ill or at the risk of becoming so admitted to hospital. The shift in policy is extended to address a shortage of hospital beds, but critics say it will lead to an increase in deaths. Opposition legislators criticized the policy in parliament yesterday, with Akira Nagatsuma, a former health minister and the deputy leader of the Constitutional Democratic Party, calling it a man-made disaster. Polls have shown many Japanese people were opposed to holding the Olympics while the country struggled to contain the pandemic and vaccinate the population. At least 270 people accredited to the games have tested positive since July 1st, but experts say there appear to have been no cross-transmission as the bubble system created to separate those at the sporting event and residents of the Japanese capital was holding up well. Japan has reported a total of 971,904 infections and 15,246 deaths to date. Caroline Tuma, Switch TV.
Thank you, Caroline Sime. The total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the United States has surpassed 35.32 million, with the death toll hitting 614,000, according to the Center for Systems Science and Engineering, CSSE, at Johns Hopkins University. During the last 2 weeks of July, the Delta variant accounted for an estimated 93.4% of all new COVID-19 cases in the states, according to figures published by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Harriet Chimea reports.
Now, this number is even higher in certain parts of the country, according to the updated figures for the week ending July 31st. In the Midwest, including Lower Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska, the Delta variant accounts for more than 98% of all cases. The figures have shown a rapid increase over the past 2 months. In the 2 weeks ending May 22nd, Delta's prevalence was estimated around 3%. Driven by the Delta variant, U.S. COVID-19 cases may double to 200,000 in a day in the fall, says Anthony Fauci, head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. The COVID-19 cases driven by the Delta variant are rising in a very steep fashion across the United States, and the country could be in trouble entering the fall unless a large portion of unvaccinated Americans decide to get the shots. The infectious diseases expert said he is concerned the high number of unvaccinated people could lead to a stronger variant emerging that could combat the vaccines that have been given out.
Thank you, Harriet Chimea. China has upgraded measures to contain the COVID-19 resurgence as a highly contagious Delta variant has entered the country and spread to several provinces and regions. The country is facing new spikes in COVID-19 infections, recording more than 400 new locally transmitted confirmed cases in the past 2 weeks, which equals the total locally transmitted cases over the previous 5 months. Harriet Chimea with more.
The highly contagious coronavirus Delta variant has spread to more than 10 Chinese provinces and regions, including Jiangsu, Henan, Hunan, and Hubei. The virus stems from a flight that departed from Russia and landed in Nanjing, capital of East China's Jiangsu province. Chinese transportation authorities have stepped up precautionary measures to curb the spread of the disease. New policies from the Civil Aviation Administration of China request that frontline workers for international flights should take acid tests for COVID-19 every other day, and that service staff for international and domestic flights should not be crossing paths in their work. The country has suspended trains departing from places with medium and high risk of coronavirus infections, such as the cities of Nanjing and Zhongzhou. For the workers of international road transport, the government has introduced a closed-loop management system to control the risk of the COVID-19 infections. The country also vows to prevent coronavirus transmission through its entry and exit channels. The National Immigration Administration has rolled out a policy of restricting non-urgent and unnecessary cross-border travel. For imported goods delivered through mail system, especially imported cold chain foods, China State Post Bureau will cooperate with the Customs Department in the work of disinfection and sample collection. Staff members handling international mail will also be managed with a closed-loop system to prevent the spread of the virus. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Harriet Chimera.
Thank you, Harriet Chimera. Citywide testing has been underway in central China's Wuhan after seven cases of COVID-19 were detected on Monday. Officials have linked the strain to the highly contagious Delta variant. At a local epidemic situation press briefing, officials said over 2.5 million people have had samples taken for nucleic acid testing, and citywide testing is scheduled to complete by Friday. Lilian Minor with his story.
All recent new cases in Wuhan were tied to a construction site in the Wuhan Economic and Technological Development Zone. As of yesterday, a mass testing was completed at the zone with some 510,000 samples collected. Meanwhile, the neighborhoods close to the construction site have entered lockdown quarantine.
根据安排，我市将于今日内完成。
According to the plan, nucleic acid testing on key groups and key areas in Wuhan will complete Wednesday, and citywide testing will finish by Friday. As of Wednesday, samples have been collected from over 2.528 million people for nucleic acid testing.
核酸采样252.8。
We have immediately locked down 46 communities near the construction site in Wuhan Economic and Technological Development Zone where positive cases have emerged. At the same time, 10 communities involved with close contacts and people associated with them identified by epidemiological investigations are also under lockdown.
In order to quickly finish collecting samples for all 12 million residents, health workers have been deployed to communities to make the process faster. Our hospital sent 150 nurses for testing at the 12 areas. Health workers said this time around they are experienced and more at ease. They also said residents are very cooperative. Many Wuhan residents say they'll know well by now that early detection and isolation are the most effective solution with the least losses to fighting COVID-19. Residents are also saying the tests have been conducted very efficiently.
It's all good and much more efficient. I queued for about an hour to get tested last time, but now it only took me about 30 minutes.
It's very well organized. It's every resident's responsibility to get tested.
For Switch TV, I'm Lilian Minor.
Well, that story by Lilian Minor marks the end of our news broadcast this afternoon. Many thanks for watching. Stay tuned for a subsequent bulletin at 7 p.m. and thereafter Tipping Point at 7:30 p.m. I am Lincoln Wambugo. Our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. My producer has been Lilian Minor. Till then, good afternoon.